So this video is sponsored by Bityard, a crypto exchange with 9 out of 10 stars by the Coin Bureau guy, 400 cryptos to choose from their spot exchange, derivatives that include commodities, forex and traditional markets, as well as inverse perpetual coin futures, USDT perpetual futures and leveraged tokens. You can even set up a copy trading account so people can copy your trades, you earn commission on those trades, or you can follow other traders who have better results than you. Set an account up with a link in the description and get mystery box bonuses for completing random tasks. Bityard. Hello everybody, welcome back. So I've got my video on because I want to talk to you about the future. Okay, the future of what I think is going to be the next state of play for crypto and Bitcoin coming in towards the end of this year into next year. All right, so it's a bit of a long-term projection, but obviously we start these cycle journeys or whatever you want to call them, you know, by thinking and planning for the future, right? So obviously I've been buying this Bitcoin since 40,000 all the way down at incremental supports, which just don't hold, right? They just don't hold. And now we've come down to our previous all-time high, this $20,000 zone. So be it. It is just a number. There's not really a great deal more to it than that. We had a reaction here all the way down. We had a little resistance here. Came down to the tune of 16,000, which is definitely a number worth thinking about if you're looking to make incremental buys of Bitcoin. But what I'm talking about is the next phase. Wherever Bitcoin goes down to, what's the next phase? So with all these things like Celsius and Lunar and all this other nonsense, it would appear that the next phase of crypto is going to be that of regulatory certificates. You know, who's got the royal seal of approval and who doesn't, right? There's always going to be decentralized exchanges, but the big exchanges, basically Binance, I would imagine, and a handful of others like Crypto.com, FTX, probably Coinbase as well, they will survive and they will be regulated appropriately. They're already towing the line, basically. There's no problems there. Yeah, people like to complain about the KYC stuff, but really, it's a bit of a non-event, really. If anyone has ever traded traditional markets, you have to basically submit all kinds of things before you can actually start. You know, for me in the UK, you know, national insurance number, all the way down to, you know, what pair of socks I'm wearing, sometimes they ask. And that's all perfectly normal. So when it comes to me buying the lows, if and when we get a big crash down, similar to what we saw in 2018, right? Something similar to this. You could argue that this is already playing out at the moment towards, you know, to what we're looking at here. So from the top to the bottom, that was an 85% retracement, and from this top to this current low is about 70. So you could argue that there's still a ways to go. If we were going into the 80s, that would take us to around 14 or so. $14,000. So, you know, it's not far away from where we are right now. And it could go lower, obviously. It could go lower. And I think when we see the bottom form and some of these huge lows get submitted and we get to see the size of these dumps, it's time to not just think about buying Bitcoin back. It's time to think about buying altcoins back. And I have a strong feeling that when it comes to buying altcoins at these significant lows, that the ones I would be looking for would be some of my favorites, the ones that I like to trade anyway, but the ones that I could first of all either stake, the ones that have got decent development on them with responsible teams, and ones which have charts of at least a full cycle's worth of history, so old enough to go back to 2019 at least, right? So we can see how they performed. Arguably, I'd like to see how they performed older than that, so old charts. So try not to go any younger than a couple of years, because effectively, if we think about what charts look like, if they came into the market late 2020, 2021, they're not going to be relevant. Not really. Not really. My preference for trading is always to look at things that have got a long period of trading history, because all your indicators that you use are based on price, volume and time. And so if we've got price and volume, that's okay, but if we don't have an appropriate amount of time to use those indicators, the indicators are worth less than they are usually. And again, there's no guarantees with indicators, as we all know. They work for the most part, but sometimes they don't. It's just like going to the bookies. You're placing a bet, you want to place a bet, you want to try and get the best odds. Gives you the idea that you're more likely to win. That's all indicators are. That's all TA really is. It's basically narrowing down the odds to make a decision, which is effectively in many ways like a gamble, to be honest. It is. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to highlight my preferences for buying considerable lows in the form of a capitulation dump. So I'm not looking to go into altcoins generally speaking for investment purposes outside of these ones, because altcoins, they serve a great purpose. When you're doing Bitcoin trading, Bitcoin dominance plays a big role. It's done that recently. We can see the effect even in a downtrend of playing the Bitcoin dominance chart. But outside of that, sometimes it's worth thinking about buying altcoins when they are extremely low, but not any odd piece of tat. So this is my list of altcoins for I suppose for the next 2 to 3, 4 years coming, and they're based mostly on their old history, performance, team, and in some ways fundamentals. In fact, there's one more I'm going to add to this. So first of all, my favourite, Algorand. Algorand has never really caught a break when it comes to its Bitcoin pair, but one day it certainly will. We're finding a reaction down here. Again, this is all just short-term stuff. It's obviously a decent area to have thought of buying it. I buy Algorand quite frequently, to be honest with you, and stake it. And it was one of the only altcoins I bought on that giant capitulation dump that we got about three weeks ago. I bought a load of that, put it into staking. My idea is that over time, if this increases to over a couple of dollars, I could class that as passive income for me. That would be like a decent salary. If it gets to and remains above $2, it's a decent salary, and I could live off those staking rewards. We all know that the team behind it are creating all kind of wealth of different aspects to their blockchain. It's got every component that any blockchain aspires to be. The only problem is they might be reaching out too far, but they're fast, they're cheap, they're efficient, and they're carbon neutral, which is probably going to feed into that whole idea of blockchain being bad for the environment. So this is completely the opposite. So Algorand, definitely buying that as low as it goes for what I believe to be a worthy, first of all, investment that actually pays effectively dividends through staking rewards. Right, Chainlink, love it or hate it, Chainlink actually performed pretty well in the last bear market, right? 2018, it was actually outperforming Bitcoin, and it would have been the better decision to buy Chainlink than it would have been to buy Bitcoin on 2018 bubble pop. And throughout that period, you would have done very well. And actually, let's just measure it from that bubble pop, which is basically here, all the way up to here. This is a Bitcoin paired chart. You would have effectively, if you had the choice of buying one Bitcoin at 20,000 or $20,000 worth of Chainlink, you would have ended up being a very happy man by the time it reached its parabolic high. Even now, if you'd bought the parabolic top of Bitcoin, you'd bought the $20,000 worth of Chainlink, you'd still be up over 200%. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Now, obviously, this is an old chart, and for that reason, I like it. It's also a heavily established blockchain with lots of adoption for big players from Google and all these guys. So it goes onto my buys list. The lower it goes, the better the opportunity for this one, because this one I don't believe is going to go anywhere. And again, a nice piece of price action for you there. You're not going to like this one, the XRP. Now, for the record, I won't be buying any more XRP. I bought lots of it at the breakout, which was, well, it's hard to say on this Bitcoin pair. And then since then, I've been trading derivatives with it throughout the last, well, I suppose last couple of years. So this is where I went hard and heavy into XRP. And for the record, XRP was my first little taste into major altcoin trading. I bought XRP when it was basically about 3 cents back in 2016-17. Watched the market fluctuate all over the place, testing times, and then it went parabolic. And I sold around about $2.60. So it made a big difference for me in my life, close to 100x really. And I've always loved it ever since. Now, one thing you can take from XRP is that it's a long, it's got a long chart history. It's been out since 2014. It's got its own cycles. I've made videos on that in the past, and because of that, I like it. It behaves well within its own remit of charting, right? So you can look at it and you can work out how it's going to play, when it's going to play, and what it means to buy it and when to buy it. And also, if you think about it on a fundamental basis, it has the capacity to actually be really big, but it's got a lot of hate in there. Not many people like it, and I can understand. From a spot trader's perspective, it's been pretty useless these last few years. But from a trader's perspective, it works quite well. And if you're thinking about it on a fundamental basis, it's actually pretty decent. It's it's not nothing. It's being utilized in many countries across the world all the time, every day, even now with this lawsuit taking place, which at some point is going to end probably in their favor, but we just don't know. So fundamentally, they've got everything they need, and yeah, the chart responds accurately. If I was thinking about buying this, though, if I was any of you guys, I wouldn't be buying it on its considerable lows, unless you're happy to hold on to it. Again, it's a spot. For a spot trader, it's a bit of a nightmare. But from a trader, you'd be looking to just on the last bear market into the last bull market. We have an enormous consolidation like this, and then finally, when we break out of that, that's when we go to the races. Long story short, XRP spends more time in a downtrend than it does in an uptrend, but when it finally gets out of its downtrend, then yeah, the big moves take place again. So what we would be really looking for, over the next year or so, would be for it to actually meander some way and get out of here at some point. Where, depending on where the price is, it doesn't really matter. It's when you get out of this, that's when you buy it, and that's where the money's made, and that's how it's always worked in the past. So that's that. Sol, simply just a fundamental buy. This isn't an old chart, which goes against one of my rules, really. It's not an old chart, but on a fundamental basis, they are probably going to withstand the test of time, I would expect. I can't give price tags on this because we're going to navigate these charts through the lens of an absolute capitulation low, which you will know if you ever see it. You will know, similar to what we saw in 2020 with the March crash. That kind of vibe, and it's that where obviously nobody wants it. Everybody's panic sold. They've got it. They've sold the lows, and we buy the lows, and I'll be buying the lows on sold simply on a fundamental basis. Same with NEAR as well. They've got the same kind of vibe going on a fundamental basis. Buy that. XLM, it's exactly the same idea as XRP. They're like the baby brother. Not as good of a chart, harder to trade, but on a fundamental basis, it's better to have it than to not have it. Again, you're not going to like this one either, but ICP. Price does not reflect the future of what this could achieve. It's probably one of, if not the biggest competitor in my mind, to Ethereum. And Ethereum, obviously doing a completely different thing. ICP, a much broader spectrum with potentially a much bigger market cap if and when it finally manages to achieve all the things that it sets out to achieve. If we're looking to move into the next area of Web3 and all the things that can accommodate, ICP, as far as I can see, is the front runner to that. Again, when people don't want stuff, people don't see stuff, they don't recognize it, they just look at the prices, they fail to see what's taking place in the future. You've got to think about it like this, right? When everybody learns to drive, okay, you look just ahead of the dashboard, right? You're driving, you're like, oh God, what's right in front of me? But over the years, you don't look at that, you look up to the horizon and you start driving, and that's what I suppose investing is like. And these are effectively altcoin investments rather than trades. We're looking to buy them on what could be the lowest that they will go for holding them over a period of years, because the next level of altcoins and crypto market is going to be one of true development. So think about the .com bubble, when that popped, when that blew. All the crap was left out, all the shit was forgotten, and the good things that crept out of those are the behemoths that we see today. And they didn't just come out of there randomly, did they? They came out of there with iPhones, and Windows, and Amazon, and electric cars, and all. Well, obviously that came later, but you see what I mean. So we look at what these things can achieve. Are these meme coins? No. Is there money in meme coins? Yeah. But are these? No, they're not. They're not meme coins. Am I going to be buying meme coins? Nah, it's not for me. It's not for me. But yeah, I mean, I could buy them as trades, but I will not be thinking about buying them on the significant lows. It's just not for me. Jasmine. Now this one is absolutely wrecked city, and the only reason this one goes into the list is because over in Japan, where they regulate crypto to the max, this is a Japanese token by the way, this one has passed all their regulations, so it would make sense that over time this one's going to pass all the regulations everywhere else. This coin is wrecked city, complete wrecked city, but this one's a little bit more of a gamble because the chart is so horrendous, similar to XRP, to ICP. But on a regulatory standpoint, they've got the seal of approval, which means that on a considerable low that gets formed in the market, this one could also reach a considerable low that could be the absolute low. And this one, if it were to start to make its way out of this wrecked city chart that it's got, then this one probably has a ways to run. And the last one on top of all of this is actually Matic. You know, Matic was probably the biggest trade I've made of this entire cycle. Bought that effectively overall probably about 1 cent, you know, 1.2 cents, and that has been the biggest trade of this entire 3-year period, right? That's been enormous. That was my XRP of this cycle. Sold most at 100x, left some to ride 150x. It's made a massive difference to my existence. Not that you can tell with my useless background here, but the rest of the house is quite nice. But yeah, it's coming down, but at the same time, the returns on Matic is likely to still be quite good, providing that Ethereum remains so useless. But it's like many of these things, like the returns that have been had compared to the returns that are yet to be had depend very much on the size of the market caps that they have, and also on the size of the lows that they go down to. So I would argue that for things like, you know, Matic, XRP, you know, they've done the business before. You know, even at this price now, XRP is what, 30 cents. That's still 10x up from when I bought it back in 2016. The charts go back. Some people think that XRP doesn't hold its value, you know, but you know, if I held on to that XRP without selling it, technically that is still holding on to its value despite going on to that. I'd still be 10x. That's better than having it in the bank. So it's all relative to where you buy these things, and again, you know, market caps increase over time with the more money that goes into it. XRP might only be 30 cents now, but it's not 3 cents anymore. In order to do that, it has to have money staying within it. That's why the market cap is much bigger than it was when I bought it. That's why the returns were so huge when it goes up. Now, obviously, as a trader, there's going to be loads of coins that we can trade appropriately, shit coins, all kinds of shit coins like we like to do. And we do that at appropriate times. But as an investing standpoint, as we see blockchain develop and probably compete with major tech somewhere down the line, these are my picks. There's probably a few more that I may consider, but these are my main picks. And if we get a capitulation dump, a big one for Bitcoin, you know, lower than 10,000, 8,000, maybe even lower, when everybody's marking the absolute end, it's not the end. From the ashes the phoenix will rise, and some of these coins here will likely be the top performers of the next cycle. Given the way that I'm viewing this from a regulatory standpoint, which is almost certainly going to come into force for altcoins, some of these, like Algorand for instance, and probably XRP somewhere down the line, Jasmine for instance, and a few others, they've already passed. They've already passed. You don't have to worry about any of that. That's all done and dusted. And so we're going for, well, it's not the right term, but blue chip, you know, long-standing royal seal of approval type blockchains with tokens, regardless of the tokenomics, but based on price, volume, time, team, and regulation, which is coming. Which is also something you might want to think about when choosing exchanges, yeah? So obviously I've got this video sponsored by Bityard. They're regulated, right? They are regulated. You know, they've got all the certificates on their website, they're regulated. They're not going to come under any problems. Binance making all the efforts possible to be as regulated as they can be. They've gone through enormous changes this last cycle from when they started to where they are right now. You know, from country to country, there's all kinds of intricate differences to how you can operate on that exchange. People like to screw Binance over, forget about it. I'm almost certain that those people that take that viewpoint are in some way financially incentivized to do that. So I wouldn't worry particularly about Binance. You know, it's as far as I can see, it's done its best to toe the line. But some of the smaller exchanges, or the ones that don't, I suppose less of a thing, you know, that allow you to, you know, trade Wild West style, you know, without basically any verification and stuff like that. Be a little more skeptical about those types of exchanges, because regulation's coming, And as we can see, like, you know, exchanges, Celsius, all these sort of things, they can collapse. They can collapse if they don't have a firm business model and a decent understanding about the risks and returns. It would appear that Binance is the only exchange at the moment which is hiring, whereas all these others are getting rid of their stuff, which is fine as we enter recession. It's normal in the tech industry. So yeah, think about things long term. Remember, you've learned to drive now. Let's look a little bit beyond the dashboard to the horizon. What we're going to do next? How we're going to plan this, right? Like I say, I'm in a fortunate position. I've watched the last bear market unfold, got in at the bottom of that bear market, and have had a great bull run this entire time. Looking to do the whole thing all over again. It's like the Monopoly board has been packed away, houses, hotels, back in the box. Let's start the game again. Like, and from a cycle standpoint, when we're talking about Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin's next cycle just given to us on the average, you know, bull stroke bear market phases of that 4-year cycle, which has held relatively well as far as time is concerned. We'll be looking for September, October, November to mark the end of the bear market from a time perspective. From a price perspective, it could be marked a lot earlier than that, you know, because as we're all aware, this is all being driven by a much broader bear market felt across all markets, all countries. So let's think about it like that, and let's start to plan for the next one. Trust me, this is where the money gets made, yeah, by planning your next moves, okay? Notice when this channel was made, it was in 2019. There's no surprise there. I was waiting for the bear market to end, took part and in the bull market basically from the beginning. We'll be looking to do that all over again, and in order to do that, you've got to make a plan for it. And look, time is ticking. It's not long before that September, October, November time comes around. That would be the beginning, marking the new bull market. And if you've not allocated positions towards those lows, you will regret it. You will definitely regret it if you've not started to make a plan now, you know, leading into that. It's not far away. It's not far away, trust me. You know, when people always say, oh, I wish I bought this back then, I wish I bought this back then, we're approaching that period now where we don't need to wish, we get given the opportunity to do it. Let's just make plans for it, all right? Anyway, I'll leave it with you there. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.